Hey guys, this is Ray, owner of Double R Diesel. Welcome back to the channel. And today I thought I'd do a video discussing my thoughts on ownership of this 2025 Ram 2500 so far. Um, I'm sure you've already seen a lot of other videos out on YouTube with guys discussing, ownership of these trucks. And I'm just going to do one and put my 2 cents worth in as well. But overall, I put not sure how many miles I've got on it. It's over 1,000, but anyway, I've driven this truck to town. I've hauled my camper with it, um, put weight behind it, played around with it, you name it, the normal stuff. My wife's driven the truck. So, I mean, we've used it for a lot of different purposes. And so far, overall, I really, really, really like it. Um, the good, the bad, the ugly so far. All the good is it's a very refined truck. I'm very pleased with the performance, particularly with the new 8-speed transmission. Keep in mind that the engine does make a little bit more power than the previous high output model, but it's good to be able to have the high output power in a 2500 package versus having to go with a 3500 or, like we used to do. But really like the power, really like the performance. The 8-speed makes all the difference. It's got a great tune from the factory that meets, the needs of most situations, I feel like. Um, Fuel economy, DEF consumption, basically like it's always been. I don't really see anything different. This truck's probably averaging somewhere around 16 miles per gallon with mixed driving, and that's unloaded. With the camper behind the truck, we're going to be more around 9 or 10 miles per gallon, but that's just to be expected. DEF consumption, I'm going to guess and say it would use, depending on how it's used, towing it's going to use more. If it's not towing, you're not going to use as much, but a tank of DEF probably, my guess would say, lasts somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,500 miles or so, depending on, like I said, how we use the truck. So really no different than the previous models. It's very quiet, very smooth. Um, the engine, obviously, it's not very loud because of the fact that it has all the emission stuff on it, but you can still tell that it's a Cummins. It's got a good sound to it if you really listen for everything. But the new fuel injector setup, obviously with the hydraulic roller lifters, everything's working good, by the way, so far there. It's really overall very quiet engine. The new CP8 pump does have a little bit of a noise of its own making that if you know what to listen for, you can tell that's what it is. So that's a little bit different, but otherwise very quiet, very smooth. I really like it. The transmission is very smooth and on point. Whether you're just driving around unloaded or you put the thing in tow haul mode and you put a load behind it. From a tuning standpoint, if I could tune this truck, obviously I would tweak a few things, but overall it's not bad. Um, I'll probably take this truck for a drive in this same video, and I'll talk about some things, performance-wise, unloaded versus loaded, that I've noticed about it that, if I could change, I would change. But there again, like I said, very happy with the truck overall. As far as bad, the only bad experience that I've had with this truck so far is we actually went camping a few weeks ago, and we got to the campground, and it was a little hot, and was trying to back the camper in the spot. And I rolled the passenger side window down just so I could talk to my wife as I was backing the trailer in. Rolled it down, didn't think nothing about it. Had rolled it down many times before. But when I went to roll the window back up, the passenger side window wouldn't go back up. And we tried turning the truck off, turning the truck back on, playing with the different control buttons. We didn't do a hard battery reset. I guess I should have, knowing what the cause was now. But anyway, long story short, the window regulator on the passenger front door was jammed. I had to pull the panel off, remove the motor for the regulator, unjam the mechanism, put the motor back in. And I was like, well, actually, I put the window back up, and then I put the motor back in, and I didn't mess with it no more for the rest of the camping trip. Subsequently took it to the dealer, had the dealer look at it. Long story short, there was actually a software update for the Windows, of all things. I think it would be controlled by the body control module, but there was a software update for that module that basically needed and should have been done before the truck was actually delivered to me, but it wasn't. And the actual thing that software update would fix is the windows getting hung up in the down position. I think probably what was happening is the regulator motor would actually go too far, pull it down too far, and get the regulator jammed to where it wouldn't go back up. And I think they basically just reset the travel limits for the motor and the regulator in the new software update. But other than that, it's been great. Really like the truck. So, tell you what, let me get the cameras redone. Let's take the truck for a drive. I'll show you some things that I really like about it and just talk about it a little more in general. So, let me do that. Okay guys, let's go for a little quick drive. Truck is completely unloaded, nothing behind it. Got the truck in regular mode. I will set my exhaust brake. I do love my exhaust brake. I always have with all these 6.7 Cummins trucks. In my opinion, nobody does an exhaust brake any better than Ram with the Cummins. Ford and GM have their variants of quote-unquote exhaust brake function, but none of them are as effective as what's used on the 6.7 liter Cummins, and it just works super good. So let's hit the highway. See, I've got my gauges pulled up. It's a lot of information you can see in this digital cluster. You know, obviously you got to get a higher trim level truck to get the digital cluster. You know, not necessary for most people, but I like it. I like seeing the information being, you know, still that I don't have a tuning device that I can install in this truck and monitor this kind of thing. So we got your temperatures, our pressures, voltage, exhaust brake, estimated what they would think is a retard power setting. Got your boost pressure, and we've also got the monitor on our DPF filter. As far as that goes, let's talk about regeneration cycles. So what I have noticed so far is this truck has not gotten past 20% full. I've noticed that you know, what I perceive to be a regeneration cycle happening quite often, not every day, not every time I drive the truck, but I'll just say quite often. I'd say, you know, at least once, to be honest with you, every 100 miles. It's kind of frequent, but I can tell that the truck is regenning. I know what to listen for. Obviously, you can smell it if it's been regenning where the exhaust has gotten really hot. But I know what to listen for, turbo-wise, injection-wise, the sounds that it makes. And it does regen quite often, and I never see this particulate filter go beyond 20% full. At least I haven't. We are on a small country road, and you can hear probably a little tremble in my voice. It's very rough. This road is very rough. It's not much better than not being paved at all, to be honest with you. They came and done a chip seal job on this road probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and they actually made this road worse when they did that. It's very rough. But regardless, this truck does ride very well, in my opinion, for a heavy-duty truck, 3/4 ton. With the 2500, you know, you get the coil springs in the back, kind of like a modified 4-link suspension in the rear, and obviously we've always had coils up front, but we've got the radius arms up front with the coils, and this truck rides pretty good, you know, for a 3/4 ton. I have driven them all. I've driven the 2500s with a pure rear airbag setup, and they ride slightly better than this, but not a lot better. I've ridden the 3500s that do not have the air assist on them, and those probably ride the roughest of any unloaded. Obviously, if you put a load behind these things, they ride very well because that's what they're intended to do, to carry a load. But the 3500s without the air assist have the stiffer leaf springs in the rear, and they ride probably the roughest unloaded. the 3500s with the leaf springs with the air assist actually don't ride bad at all in loaded, because they use a rear leaf that's not quite as stiff as the ones that would be if they didn't have an air assist, and so they ride a little smoother. But overall, these trucks ride very well for what they are. Obviously, you don't buy these things to ride like a Cadillac, but for a 3/4 ton truck, they ride very well. Power wise, this truck is a totally different animal with 8-speed transmission. This 8-speed keeps the engine where it needs to be as far as maximum acceleration and pulling power. I think a 10-speed, given the power band and the torque curve of inline 6-cylinder, would have been a waste. So Ram knew what they were doing when they worked with ZF for just an 8-speed, not a 10-speed. So game changer there. And speaking of the ZF 8-speed transmission, if you've ever seen any videos or documentation of one of those engines, one of those transmissions torn apart, it's a very robust transmission. The clutch packs, the drive hubs, the shafts, input, output, they're beefy, and they're overbuilt for this application. So we finally got a good transmission made behind the Cummins as far as an automatic goes in these trucks that I think will serve very well. I mean, time will tell. It's still very new, but I think they're going to be a great transmission even in the long run. Short run, obviously, it's a world of difference. These trucks are actually pretty surprisingly fast from the factory with a factory tune. This thing actually light up the rear tires from a dead stop. I've never had a bone stock truck with a bone stock calibration that'll light up the rear tires and leave rubber like this one will. Matter of fact, I'll give you a little quick demonstration if the traffic here will allow me. So let me turn off my traction control. And see if I can power brake it here. Oh yeah. It'll go. For a stock truck, she will go. But yeah, it's a totally different truck compared to the older models. Now where this thing really shines is when you put a load behind it. The power curve of the engine, the gearing in the final drive, the gears in the transmission, all that works together, and it really performs well when you put a load behind this truck. And matter of fact, I think when I'll get back, I'll actually hook up to my camper and give a demonstration of how this thing acts with my camper behind it. But guys, it's in my opinion, it's night and day better than what the 68 RFEs were and the Ason's AS69 trucks were. This thing does it as it should. Now, like I said, you know, if I could tune this truck, sure, I'd tweak some things. I'd add some more power, obviously. As far as the transmission tuning goes, if I could tune the transmission, I probably would firm up the unloaded shifts, quicken them a little bit more. It has a pretty good defuel between shifts, about like the Ason's did. Not quite as bad, but about the same. And the shifts are, you know, designed to be smooth and, you know, work for most people. But for me, I particularly like a little firmer shift, a little quicker shift. And, you know, if I can modify the transmission valve, that's what I would do. Now, this thing does have a learning capacity about it. When you put a load behind the truck, it will shift firmer and quicker, obviously to reduce the slippage on the clutch packs with weight behind it, and it does fantastic there. So no complaints in tow haul mode with a load behind it. But in regular mode, I probably would tweak at least the shift firmness in the actual overlap between gears. I'd quicken that, you know, shorten those times of clutch release and applications just a little bit, but overall not bad at all. So I'm gonna get on back and maybe put the camper behind the truck and we'll take it for another ride. All right guys, I've got my truck hooked to my camper here, and just give you a little overview real quick, and if you hear the wind blowing, I apologize. So got a Rockwood fifth wheel camper here. Give you the specs on it. The dry weight is 11,408 pounds. She's 40 foot long. With all my goodies inside, she's probably approaching about 13,000 pounds. It's got a gross weight rating of 13,496. I've got a B&W slider companion hitch in here. I've used B&W for years, by the way, guys, and never had a complaint with it. I know there's other manufacturers out there, but I like B&W. I like the slider fifth wheel hitch because if you got a short box truck like I've got, you could get this thing in a tight situation, and with the short box you can have some encroachment between the back of the cab and your cap on your camper or whatever else you might be pulling. So with the slider, if you know anything about them, you can pull that lever and slide it all the way back if you're, got to make a really tight turn. Say for example on a really tight campground, I might want to have to jackknife this thing in a spot, I can do that. But it's more wind resistance than anything. 14,000 pounds, 13,000 pounds, it's not a lot of weight for these trucks, but she sits about dead level. It's in a little bit of a hole over there, so it's really not squatting any at all. As far as sitting, not sitting level, being over squatted in the rear, but sits about right. It rides very well, drives very well. I think I'll take her down the road and show you what it's like driving this 25 Ram with the camper behind it. So let me get inside, get the camera going, and we'll go for a short ride. Alright guys, we are hitting the highway here. Got it in tow haul mode, exhaust brake engaged, camper behind the truck. Again, we're about 13,000 pounds gross weight on the camper right now, and it's like I said, it's more wind resistance than anything, and I'm just easing into it. One of the big key differences with these new 8-speed trucks is a difference in the transmission mode. So in regular mode, it will start out in second gear because first gear is super deep and it's only needed for pulling and getting a heavy load moving. So if you're in regular mode, it will start out in second gear most cases, and you go from there. But with tow haul engaged, it will start out in first gear to help you get that load moving, and it makes a difference. And you'll notice that the shift points are also stretched quite a bit more than the regular mode. Now the regular mode, the shift points are, they're not bad at all. With 8 gears and the ratios that it offers, you really don't get into a lugging situation, but with this setup, you definitely don't get into a lugging situation when you're in tow haul mode. Now I do have to watch out for low overhanging trees with the camper behind me. I always never forget what's behind you when you're pulling something. But truck handles it very well. Like I said, it's the same bumpy road that was going down a while ago, empty, and truck rides a lot better with weight in the back. As far as the weight goes, I failed to mention a while ago that looking up on the RV specs on this camper that I've got, the pin weight on this particular camper is right at 1,900 pounds, just a little less than 2,000, and the that puts about the limit as far as what pin weight we really need to put on this truck, and have occupants on the inside as well. If you kept up with the whole Ram situation, the gross vehicle weight, capacity, carrying the payload capacity thing, has been kind of controversial for a while now, because Ram has severely underrated their trucks for years. And I think that's in an effort to get around some, DMV standards that are in place. They recently made an update with midway through the 25 model year, and they re-evaluated, re-rated their payload ratings for the trucks. So Ram finally had to just give in and say, okay, yeah, our trucks can haul more than what we've been saying. But this is a 2500 model. I'm sure somebody is going to give me some heat for pulling, this size of a load on a single rear wheel truck with a 3/4 ton suspension, but it handles it just fine. I mean, I'm driving it one-handed. I feel very secure with what I've got. So performs very well. The biggest thing, the best thing that I can say about this setup is the same deal that's been going on with Ram and Cummins for years, and that is the exhaust brake. I just simply tap the brake one time and she's slowing down and she's working with the exhaust brake all by itself. I'm finally touching the brake pedal a little bit because I'm almost here at the stop sign, and the exhaust brake is still working in conjunction with the transmission gearing down. It works fabulous. It has no problem toting the load. So, see he's on across the intersection. And you can just see how well it works. It'll hold gears a little longer, higher in the RPMs. Keeps it at torque peak always, pretty much. That way you get the best acceleration when you got a heavy load behind you. It's no problem whatsoever. The engine transmission combination can pull a lot of weight. The braking point is just going to be the truck itself, and the suspension and the brake. So, you'll get to a point to where you can't stop the load anymore, or the suspension won't carry the weight anymore. But this engine and transmission has plenty of grunt to pull a lot of weight. I'm very impressed with it. And as far as handling goes, there again, we're on a nice smooth road now. Got some nice wide shoulders. Very comfortable. Truck rides very smooth. I'm running about 60 miles an hour. We're tacking about 1800 RPMs or so. I'm not looking at a gear display, but I would say that we're probably in 7th gear right now. If I could get it on up on, a little bit faster, she'll slip into 8th gear and, get a little bit better fuel economy if I'm on good flat ground. But this is good. It's not lugging. Really no complaints at all with the transmission tuning. It does shift a little firmer, a little quicker in tow haul mode with the weight behind it, which it should. So don't be alarmed if you notice the difference, but that's in an effort to reduce the clutch slippage, during gear changes, and that's precisely what needs to happen. I really like it. Like I said, if I could change anything about the transmission tuning, I might possibly tweak the shift point in tow haul mode so that I could get it into 8th gear a little bit easier, just running 60 for a little better fuel economy. I wouldn't have to, get it on up to 65 or 70 to do that. But I might would change that, and I might would change the shift feel firmness in the regular mode. But other than that, I'm very happy with the calibration on this transmission. Engine wise, makes plenty of power, for most people. But the hot rodder in me, if I could tune the engine, I would tune it for a little bit more power, but it doesn't need a lot more. As far as tuning goes, who knows? Time will tell. I think it's going to happen sooner or later. It's going to be a matter of some proprietary information being released. Hopefully that will come sooner than later, but in the meantime, there's going to be other options. There's going to be the Edge programmer that's going to be available. There will be probably some others that, they're basically just rail pressure modules, but we've talked about that briefly before. They'll work, but it's not the same as a complete tune. And like I said, the hope is to be able to completely tune these things one of these days soon, engine and transmission. As far as emissions go, yeah, I don't like something that's going to regen all the time, but you know, as long as it doesn't become problematic and put me on the side of the road, that's my main concern. You know, reliability, yeah, we could talk about that. None of that emission stuff is helping the longevity of your power plant, but you know, till something changes, we'll have to deal with it, but time will tell. So I think I'm gonna just get on down the road a little piece. We'll return back and we'll conclude this video. All right, guys, I think we'll wrap this video up. This has been my 2 cents on how I feel about the new 25 Ram trucks. Obviously, there's 26 models already on the lots, I think now, and so this is starting to be old news, but I wanted to give you my 2 cents worth on the situation. Again, I really like the truck. The 8-speed transmission is the star of the show. It makes all the difference in the world as far as putting the power that 6.7 liter Cummins makes to the ground. Definitely a much more robust transmission. If you've seen the guts of it, as far as how it performs, the shift points are pretty much on, you know, where they need to be. Engine makes good power. Obviously, if I could tune it, I'd love to make some more, but we'll see what happens there. As far as the engine reliability goes, I mean, it's too soon to say how well these engines will last in the long haul. It's got a new fuel injection system on it, basically, versus the old style. Still got the same questionable hydraulic roller lifter valve train. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, overall, really like the truck. Performs well. As you can see, it handles the camper that I own very well. You know, you've seen videos out there of these things pulling some really ridiculous weights. I've seen 30+ thousand pounds behind some 3,500 models, and they don't seem to mind it any whatsoever. So overall, great truck. If you're in the market and you're looking at a new truck, definitely consider a 25, 26 Ram heavy duty. Matter of fact, if you can find a leftover 25 on the lot, you might catch a good deal on one. Just make sure that all the software updates, all that kind of stuff has been done before you take it home. Please ask about that. That way you don't have any surprises after you get the truck home. But again, great truck. Time will tell how it lasts in the long haul. But once again, thank you for following along. God bless each and every one of you. And we will see you again real soon.